Chair recognizes Senator Mitchell.
Well, thank you very much, Madam President. Let me that thing over there. You're a good kid all the same. Am I permitted to say that? Thank you, Madam President. So this has turned out to be an interesting debate. Yeah, you know, I was going to sleep there for a while, and I told the leader for the government business, I said, you know, I had to use an expletive, but I can't use it in here. But I said, but I'm going to answer some of the things he said. You know, I noticed that every time the senator speaks, he is well informed about what the competent authority knows and does and says, and is always fully armed to get to his feet on one point of order or the next. And so he is a well-informed senator, and he identified himself as a young senator. I would only say, yes.
Chair recognizes.
Yeah. I believe you referred to an honorable senator as a kid, and I think that's unparliamentary. I'd ask that you should withdraw it unreservedly.
I hadn't started my statement. It was just an exchange between the two of us. And I said to him, good kid all the same. It was just an off remark. So it was not intended to be on the record. I mean, good Lord.
Isn't that amazing? So when I...
Your remarks... I understand the ground you're...
No.
I understand the ground you're revisiting.
When you stand on your feet and you say something, when you say it isn't intended to be on the record, that's okay.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So you're applying a different standard to others than you apply to yourself.
No. I understand the ground
you're on. So, I mean, you know...
I understand the ground
whether it's understood or not.
I had not started my statement.
You're on your feet, Senator.
Yeah, fine. If you wish to take that technical objection, no problem. I'm sure the senator didn't take offense. It was an off-the-side remark to the senator between myself and himself. It was not a remark to Madam President and the Senate.
You were on your feet and speaking.
It isn't worth the argument to me.
To the Bahamian people.
It isn't worth the argument to me.
And that's why it would be simpler to just
withdraw it brotherly. I apologize a million thousand times because I called him a kid.
Thank you.
A million thousand times.
Thank you.
On my hands and knees.
No, that won't be necessary.
Madam President, I do not believe... No, I'm sorry. I do not believe that a distinguished and senior political leader and senator, such as the leader of opposition business in this place, should make a mockery of the etiquette of the Senate.
Who's making a mockery?
Oh, I grovel on my hands and knees and all that.
What are you doing
making
now?
A mockery.
What are you doing now?
I took a point.
What are you doing now?
No, I was imitating you.
Oh, I see.
Yes, I took a point.
What is it? Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Fine. You can consider me as having flattered you. I don't really, it doesn't bother me what you think. What I am concerned about is that we ought to have consistent standards in this place. And the same that is demanded of me, we are entitled to demand of you, because this is the Senate and it has its rules.
You're making a mountain out of a molehill. I have said the matter is withdrawn.
Thank you.
That's
an end
to the matter.
And if you said it like that, I would not be standing.
Well, fine. Whatever you say.
Thank you, sir.
Whatever you say.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, of course. And it's a good thing you can do so in a free country. Say whatever you want to say.
No, that's inappropriate, Senator. You cannot say.
Yes, you can.
In this setting, no.
Yes, I can. Even if it's libelous, I can say it. And slanderous. Free country.
But it would be inappropriate.
There may be consequences for it. That's a different thing. But I say what I want to say. I say what I want to say.
Senator Mitchell.
And I understand that, and I'm subject to those rules. But you're making a mountain out of a molehill.
Okay.
Making a mountain out of a molehill. Now, let's get to the facts in this debate. First of all, I was talking about how well informed the senator is, who is not a kid.
Yeah, it's like...
I'm talking about how well informed he is. But it appears that, first, while he listened so slavishly to this so-called voice note, and I'm happy that he listened because he got to spread what I said around today. So grateful. I should give you $10 for that. It's worth more than that? Yeah, because you had such a wide audience. And now, so those who didn't hear it now know what was said in it. So very good. But secondly, the facts of it. There was a statement issued last evening by the Progressive Liberal Party, which indicated that the government leader made a public invitation to the leader of the opposition without notice yesterday to attend what was supposed to have been a cabinet briefing on COVID-19. He doesn't know what Mr. Davis's schedule is, what Mr. Davis has to do, and the Prime Minister knows how to invite the leader of the opposition, not to get up on your feet and say, come over, see me at 6:30. That's respectful, is it? It's not appropriate and it's not respectful. And then secondly, in any event, the statement also concluded that the leader of the opposition then wrote or approached the Prime Minister or would be requesting of the Prime Minister a briefing of the entire opposition team by the health officials. Senator Darville spoke about it in his presentation today. As it stands, the Prime Minister called the leader of the opposition, which is the appropriate thing to do, last evening, and asked if the leader of the opposition would pay a call on his office this morning at 8 a.m. Which call took place? Which call the Prime Minister briefed him on the events which now, as the government sees it, transpires in the country. So obviously he wasn't informed about that. So, you know, and then he talks about playing politics. Not that I object to playing politics. I don't object to it. And I don't see that this atmosphere is so rarefied and sanctified that you come. What you expect to do in the Senate but play politics? We come here to shoot marbles? I mean, gee. The thing is, I don't have no issue, but you know, everybody's getting up on this grand stage as if we're in some rarefied air. You know? Everybody in their rum shop around here cussing the government, saying whatever they want to say, but when we come in the Senate, oh no, we must be pious and hold our hands together and say, we can't say this and we can't say that. Lord have mercy. What world are we living in? You know, there was a story, Madam President, there was an investor here, Alfred Sears was then the Attorney General, and he told me that they were in these negotiations and the investor got very upset and started saying some words that you can't repeat in here. Now, Mr. Sears, you know, grew up in East Street, and the fella didn't know who he was fooling with. His benefactor and friend and raiser was the late Mrs. Ethel Kemp. And if you know Miss Kemp, so he was taught well. So Mr. Sears said to the man, okay, so because you curse, I'm supposed to get scared now. And I thought about that story when it appears my patriotism was being questioned in the leader's statement when he came here about how this is a time when we must all stick together and country comes first. And then we got another lecture about how, you know, this is not a time for politics and so on and so forth. The fact, Madam President, that we object to particular policies, we object to particular personalities, has nothing to do with patriotism. Nothing to do with it. It is simply following a constitutional role. That is it. And, Madam President, when I came to this debate, I remembered some words of a friend of mine, a businessman in Grand Bahama, Brian Seymour, who was quoted in the newspaper. And Brian Seymour said that when this lockdown in Grand Bahama was announced by the government, he was so upset that he couldn't even lead the prayers with his family that morning. He was so upset. He had to ask his wife to pray. because we've fallen into this situation because of a decision which we ought to have known would lead to these consequences. Blind Bartimaeus could see it. That if you open up the country without the proper protocols, this is where it's going to lead. And what was the particular issue? The particular issue was the lacuna in the regulations which allowed Bahamians to travel out of the country for 72 hours and back without a COVID test. And now, Bahamians, having followed the regulations of the competent authority, are now being blamed for spreading the virus. It's your fault. It's their fault. No, that's what you're saying now. In fact, the Prime Minister, when he was speaking, said, well, we shouldn't be blaming anybody. But the initial address was, Bahamians did this. Bahamians did it, as if somehow they had violated some rule or some fault. As a matter of fact, when we analyzed the statement, it was the most amazing thing. I had forgotten about this particular tense. I think it's called the passive voice. So the statement of the Prime Minister is written, and it says how the borders were opened, and as a result of the borders being opened, people, Bahamians went overseas, came back, and spread this virus. And we said, really? The borders open? The borders opened magically? Who opened the borders? Who opened the borders? We couldn't open the borders. The person who was speaking opened the borders. So wouldn't it have been more truthful, transparent, forthright, accountable, any other word you want to use, and apolitical, to say, I opened the borders. I made a mistake by allowing the borders to be open. And as a result of my mistake, we are now in this mess. Amen. Isn't that more truthful, faithful, accountable, transparent, apolitical?
That's accountable right there. That's accountable. That's what leadership is.
They said facts are stubborn. And then there's an expression, Madam President, my friend Dame Billy Miller. Dame Billy Miller, who is a former foreign minister of Barbados. And she used to always say that you cannot approbate and reprobate at the same time. Hallelujah. You can't approbate and reprobate at the same time. In more common terms, you can't give with one hand and take with the next, or you can't have your cake and eat it too. So, you get up and you say, the leader of the opposition must come see me 6:30 for a cabinet briefing, and then you say that worthless, no good, this and that and blah, 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 you know? How you can say that in the same breath and expect a fellow to show up to your meeting? How? How? What do you expect him to say? You know, Madam President, through you to the Senator, that if you were in the playground, it wouldn't go so. Yes, I understand. I'll take out my violin on that and play. In the middle of all of this, we are in this debate, as usual, over life versus livelihood. And the competent authority and the government has the responsibility on the balance issue. So there is what is going on now, and what we hear is coming is shocking this economy to its foundations. People are in the Senator talked about mental health. People are in a mental panic. What are we going to do? Rent, mortgage payment, groceries. Children got to go back to school. And all we had people are talking to us like little children. You all did such bad things, so we have to lock you up now, till you all behave. Not trying to bring the population along with you. For example, one measure you could do, and excuse me, Senator Dowell, we did promise not to give them any public ideas, but I can give them this anyway.
Help them know that.
Yeah. Why can't, Madam President, the police in their cars have a supply of masks in their cars? And every time they're along the streets and they see someone without a mask, here, buddy, here's a mask. Put the mask on. Instead of locking people up, taking them down to Central Police Station, wasting paperwork because you haven't got your mask on. How about that? And mandating businesses to have masks. Someone wants to come in and they don't have a mask, you give them a mask. And the reason I say that is because, again, led by the science, what they keep saying is the mask is the single best protection in this pandemic crisis. Single best protection. And the next one is washing your hands. The next one is the surface, clean surfaces. And the other one is distancing, the physical distancing. Those four things, says Dr. Anthony Fauci from the National Institute of Health in the United States, those four things will give you a 50% chance, 50% of getting clean away. Those four things. So if we can just get the population to do that and stop beating them over their head about, they're so terrible and, they want to have parties and they can't go to Rose Island, all this nonsense. People are social beings. You don't just give an order and people stop doing what they're going to do. And the Arawak Key people, the Potters Key people, they can't figure out what's the difference between them and McDonald's. What's the difference? The police station is right across the street from the vendors in Arawak Key, right across the street. So if people are not social distancing, there's a mechanism to deal with that. But people are dying. No, not literally dying in this sense, but starving because there's no money coming in. Montague, I go to the Montague vendors. I promised them that I would raise this. Again, we are here to report represent what people say to us. So if I can say this, I get there yesterday because they're asking me to do some legal work for them. I don't know any law anymore these days, but anyway, so I live off reputation. So I go to Montague, and so they're all gathered around because they believe I had some news for them, which I do, which is the Department of Labor can't produce the documents that I want, so I have to keep after them. But what do they tell me? They tell me that the day before I got there, officers, God bless them, of the Royal Bahamas Police Force came to them and told them, you are not permitted to sell fish on Montague anymore. You may clean fish, but you cannot sell fish. And while I was there, people were pulling up, looking for fish and cod. And they had to say, sorry, we can't sell you any fish, although we can clean fish, but we can't sell fish. That's what they were told. And they said, to add insult to injury, the bathrooms, which they thought were built for the use of the public, they were informed by the government department that the bathrooms are now closed to the fish vendors. And the people who are assigned, because since the beaches are closed and the bathrooms are only for people who use the beaches, the vendors are not permitted to use the bathrooms. And the people who clean the bathrooms were assigned to go cut the trees and weed the grass across the street. And then, every year around this time, as we get toward Emancipation Day, Gneps are in full bloom. They're full. The kids sometimes pick them too early. Oh, I'm not supposed to use that word, eh? Okay. The children. are not supposed to use that. The young people are not supposed to use that word. Are supposed to pick ganapes. Sometimes they pick them too early. But anyway, usually in Fox Hill they're sweet. And if you come down the bottom of St. Anne's Hill, you'll find adolescent boys and below, largely standing on the side of the road, early adolescent boys standing on the side of the road selling ganapes, usually 75 cents a bag, something like this. I remember a fellow named Andre who climbs the Greasy Pole. He's a senior now in Fox Hill. And one day I was passing and I wanted to get a bag of ganapes and I offered to pay. And he said, no, this is for you, because our ancestors planted these trees so we could make a living. So I see the little kids, the children, excuse me, the children, and they all are armed with, have their ganapes. But they told me that the day before, the police had been there to ask them where was their business license. So, the point of these stories is life versus livelihood. And in this pandemic, we have seen unemployment rise, we have seen money become tight, and I do not think that the authorities have paid sufficient attention to the question of infusing this economy with cash to keep it going. Which is why the Deputy Prime Minister said a week or 10 days ago, quoted in the newspaper, he said that he had no problem with the opening up of the economy. I think he said he had no regrets, because he said the government had no choice. And he said because there was no money coming in. Now there's truth. No money coming in. And so what the government has to now figure out is how to get money coming in. That's the reason why the border was open. And so those who are saying that the Progressive Liberal Party can't decide which side and so on and so forth, we are speaking only to the balancing act. That's what we're doing. We're speaking to the balancing act. The balancing act which you have to, which I've said is between life and livelihood. We therefore also want to answer the point, therefore, of how we approach getting the public engaged in what it is we need to do to get on top of this situation. I've talked about the tone of how we speak. I've talked about a public education program. And I've talked about the need for the wearing of masks. And you see, it doesn't only affect the youngsters that we were criticizing, or the people who we say go on these beaches without the mask, because there was a photograph which circulated, Madam President, of the Prime Minister himself sitting with 3 other people, and with those 3 other people, none of them had a mask, including the Prime Minister, or certainly the mask wasn't on. So, you know, the Bible says, physician, heal thyself. Heal thyself. So we are not in a position then, for all of the reasons which my colleagues have outlined earlier, to be able to support this resolution without amendment. And I will therefore move to amend this resolution in the following terms.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. It seems to me that the effect of such a move would be an attempt to scuttle the extension, since the House of Assembly has already rejected a similar amendment. So I would urge my colleague opposite not to go down the road of even so much as attempting by this amendment to scuttle the emergency powers orders that are now in place.
So, Madam President, am I to take that as a threat?
It is a request, not a threat. But the effect of what you would do is that were you to be successful, you would scuttle, because there would not be two of the same resolutions before in the Parliament. And therefore, the effect of your attempt, if it were successful, would be to scuttle the emergency powers orders. And on that basis, I request that you reconsider your posture, because what you are endeavoring to do, whether you have the votes or not, it is still an attempt. Whether it succeeds or not, an attempt is as bad as a completion in law.
Am I to be charged with attempted murder then? I would just like
to ask the member not to put words in my mouth.
No, I'm not.
I was very careful in what I stated.
5 times. You've interrupted me 5 times.
And every time you put words in my mouth, I will continue to interrupt you.
No, you didn't interrupt me over the words in your mouth.
No,
you just
I now interrupt you over the words you are putting into my mouth.
Right, okay. I take
my
the
words
out
were
of your mouth
chosen
and I
very
don't interrupt
carefully.
you anymore.
Very carefully.
Madam President, I simply want to know, since the Attorney General is supposedly the legal guardian of the rules, do I have the right in law to move an amendment in the Senate?
As far as I'm aware, Attorney.
Right.
Okay.
So and you voted, and as I recall, we voted on amendments before in this place.
Correct.
We moved amendments and he simply voted against it. So now to get up on your high horse and say request and all the rest of it, this is just propaganda. We've laid out what our position is. And what I was saying, Madam President, is we are making a distinction between, and they keep conflating these two things. The proclamation is one thing. The orders, they are other things. What we are seeking to deal with is the proclamation. And it has always been our position that Parliament ought to have, on a more frequent basis, the right to review what the government is doing. The only thing. You say 60 days, we say 30 days. That's it. The amendment seeks to do nothing more than that. So, to say scuttle the program and all the rest of it, I'm afraid you are now putting words in my mouth. And I, just like Mr. Attorney, will not have you put words in my mouth. So here is my proposed amendment. I move that the resolution be amended in the following terms. An amendment to resolution number 41. In all the subparagraphs, after the words in the resolution, now therefore be it resolved that this House, wherever the date 30th September 2020 appears, substitute the expression 30th August 2020. And I so move that amendment. If I can have a second. Second.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam President.
Yeah, I have to put the question, right? So we can see if this is going to go on.
Fine. Okay.
A resolution submitted by the opposition as an amendment, number 41. It has been moved and seconded. Okay, so we will move the amendment to the resolution number 41. In all the sub-paragraphs after the words, now therefore be it resolved that this chamber, wherever the date 30th September 2020 appears, substitute 30th of August 2020. All in, as many as are in favor.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Madam President. No one ever challenged the lawfulness of you tabling the resolution. What I was pointing to is the consequence which would flow. Everything is dependent on the extension of the proclamation. That goes without saying. But the consequence of not extending the proclamation would be that all of the orders that are necessary for the protection of the Bahamian people would fall away. And therefore, in moving the resolution, it having already been defeated in the House of Assembly, and the House of Assembly adjourned until September, 9th of September. We must always adjourn to a fixed date in the House. That would have the effect of scuttling the proclamation and the orders, because the Houses would not have been in agreement with the extension. But you're entitled to put it, and the question will, I'll soon make the request for the question be put, and we'll first vote on the amendment and then the substantive resolution if the amendment fails. Yes. Yes. Yes.
And second, so in that regard,
I thought you finished.
no, in that regard, Madam President, I wish to say,
The motion has been put. She said as many.
no, I've raised on a point of order, and that is this: to simply say that as a legal fact, the two houses have separate jurisdictions. One. Secondly,
We know that.
the Health Services Act and the Quarantine Act can do anything you want to do under this law.
As a proposition, as a legal proposition, that is an incorrect proposition. But be that as it may, I'm not in here to have a legal argument with you. As you say, this is a political place. All right? And I don't propose to go and chapter and verse through Quarantine Act, Health Services Act to have a legal argument. Let me, though, thank all senators for the quality of their presentations. Before I put the question, I think that we've ventilated some issues. No, yeah, I have to say that the question now be put. That's a well, we'll get to it, all right? Yeah. Once the amendment will be moved first, and then we'll go to the substantive matter, all right? But the point I want to make is that there has been a healthy exchange of ideas and a healthy exchange of views, and people, I think, have a better understanding of the issues. What I want to say, though, is despite the differences of opinion on the, quote, broad politics of this matter, there is absolute unanimity in this room on the need for, first of all, mutual respect and cooperation between all sides of the political divide, unanimity of purpose in our message to the Bahamian people in terms of the need to take appropriate steps as set out in the orders to protect themselves. And we all have a vision of striking the right balance between health and safety and economic activity. So I commend the senators for the strength of that message of national unity despite political differences. When it comes to the important things, we all want what is right. So, Madam President,
I still have
yes.
to read.
Huh?
Okay.
Yes, I know.
Ready.
So the vote is on the amendment first.
Okay.
Right.
So the amendment has been read. As many as are in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The nays have it. The amendment is not accepted.
Thank you, Madam President. I now move that the question.
1 second.
Yes.
Senator Mitchell, were you completed with your contribution?
Yes.
Okay.
He stops in the middle of contribution. So you have, sorry, Senator, with respect, you have more? Yeah, I thought he finished. Yeah. Yeah,
said he's finished.
Yeah, I thought he'd finished. Thank you. Yeah, so now, Madam President, I now move that the original question be now put. I do have a role to do at that point.
Whereas, pursuant to Article 29(1) of the Constitution, the Governor General may make a proclamation of emergency declaring that a state of emergency for the purposes of that article exists in the Bahamas. I will go directly to those. Now therefore be it resolved that these chambers approves the continuance of the proclamation made on the 29th day of June 2020 until the 30th day of December 2020. Affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic regulations 2020 made on the 29th day of June 2020 until the 30th day of September 2020. Affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic number 2 order 2020 made on the 30th day of June 2020 until the 30th day of September 2020. Affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic special provisions order 2020 made on the 30th day of June 2020 until the 30th day of September 2020. Affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic beaches number 2 order 2020 made on the 22nd day of July 2020 until the 30th day of September 2020, and affirms the continuance in effect of the emergency powers COVID-19 pandemic Grand Bahama lockdown order 2020 made on the 22nd day of July 2020 until the 7th day of August 2020. All those in favor of the resolution as presented, aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it. The resolution passes. Is adopted.
Thank you, Madam President. Once again, thank you to all the senators who contributed so mightily to the debate.